All right, so Google Jamboard is I think it's been around for a while, but it seems like they're kind of updating and making it more usable in different ways. So its original intended purpose, from what I understand, is that it started out kind of like what Smart Notebook is. It was meant to be used with an interactive whiteboard, and I think it's still mostly meant for that purpose, but because of how it works, being an interactive whiteboard product, but then also being a Google product, I have found it really useful with tutoring because it gives that additional feature that docs and slides kind of don't give us, which is allowing students to write on it. So what is Jamboard? Again, it's just an interactive digital whiteboard. The main and kind of only features really the things that it lets you do are insert pictures on it. You can draw, you can highlight, and you can erase. There's a laser pointer you can use. And then on the computer, the only way that you can type on it is in sticky notes. So, you can bring up little squares and type in them. They change size. There's a few different colors of them. Because it's a Google product, it shares just like the other Google apps. So the same way you share docs or slides with a colleague or a student, you can share a Jamboard with a colleague or a student. You can give them only viewing power, or you can give them editing power. You can have multiple people using it at the same time and editing it at the same time. You can also assign it on Google Classroom, and it gives you the same choices. You can have it view only, you can have everyone edit the same one, or you can have it make a copy for each student. So if you do put something like a worksheet on Jamboard, just like with docs or slides, you can have it make one for every student in Google Classroom. It's organized. I find it similar to Google Slides. In Jamboard, they call them frames, but the frames and slides are basically functionally the same way. In Jamboard, you navigate through the frames at the top of the page, whereas in Google Slides, you do it on the side. But other than that, it's set up in Slides the same way that Google Slides is. Jamboard offers options for saving and sharing. Just like other Google products, it saves automatically as you work. So when you type or write something on it, it automatically saves that. You can download the whole entire document as a PDF if you want to save the whole thing. Or it also gives you the option to save a single frame as an image. So like, let's say you're doing a math problem on it and you want to save one to be able to post it, it lets you just save one single frame, which I thought was a pretty cool feature. There are some challenges to it. It's definitely tougher with the touchpad especially, or a mouse, to draw on the screen. It's possible. I've been doing it. You'll see in a couple of slides, there's some examples of work that I've been doing with students where I've used the mouse for it. So it's not impossible, but it's definitely harder with a touchpad or a mouse. So if you have like a tablet, an iPad, something like that, and you can just write right on it, either with your finger or if you have a stylus. I also had seen in the spring in a math teachers group that I'm in, that somebody had recommended, I don't know, can you see me as well as the slideshow? Okay, so I ordered this on Amazon. So it's like a tablet that you write on with a stylus. It's on the smaller side, but it was only $30 on Amazon. And I picked that up to be able to just write out math problems instead of, having to use my mouse. That seems to work really well. If anybody was interested in that, the link is in this slideshow where it says drawing tablet stylus for the one that I got. And again, the iPad works really well in the app because you can just use your finger and draw right on it.
Jess, can I ask, it worked well for you. How do you find on the other end when the kids are doing it? Do they get frustrated with not being able to put what they want on there?
Yeah, it definitely I would say, like a lot of things, depends on the student. I have had a couple students that will write down a whole problem on there without complaining. I've had a couple students that I watch them just try to write, like they do the work on paper and then they write the answer on the screen, and watching them manipulate it with their touchpad is definitely a little painful on my end, because you can tell they're struggling with it. But I think it's something that they could definitely get used to and adjust to if you were doing it regularly. But figuring it out that first time is definitely a little tougher. And then we just had the question, can they do it on their phones? I haven't tried the app on my phone, but I remember when I was reading up on it, there are some limitations to the phone app. Some of the features are not available, but I think that just like the drawing feature would be available, so they probably could use their phones for it. I haven't tried that myself, though.
Like, would you expect a kid to be watching you and then they have to have another screen open to write on it?
I've just been using. Do you mean watching me on the video?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, because I guess I thought you would be maybe presenting something and then they might want to write something
So
on that same
I
whiteboard.
haven't been presenting when I've been tutoring with students. That's been one-on-one, or I've had a group of 3 students at the same time. So I'm not presenting anything in Google Meet. It's just my face in Google Meet. So one student uses 2 different devices and uses one to watch me and one to use the other screen. But most of them have just been only looking at the Jamboard when they're working, and they just can't see me, but they can still hear me and everything. But I haven't, so I'm writing in the same Jamboard that they're in. So, I might be talking through a math problem, but I'm just writing directly in the Jamboard so they can see it as I write in it. All right, so there are some features that are only available in the app. I don't know if it's a situation where, like, eventually they'll be bringing them to, like, a laptop browser for people who want to use it there. But as of now, they're only available in the app. But there are some pretty cool features. So again, if you have an iPad or another tablet, the app is just Google Jamboard. It's free, but it does have these additional features. So there's handwriting recognition. You can write out a word with your finger, and it will recognize the text and change it to text. That one I'm finding really, I only actually discovered that this week, but I'm finding that really useful because you actually can't, except for the sticky notes, you can't type directly in the Jamboard on the computer. So if you want, like you'll see in one of my examples, I was making a KWL chart and I wanted to have like a big word, know, want to know, learned. There's not a great way to do that on the computer, but on the iPad, you can just write it with your fingers and it recognizes the text and changes it to text for you. There's also shape recognition. So, you draw a circle with your finger, it makes it into a circle for basic shapes. But there's also sketch recognition or auto draw. So you can also draw a picture and it suggests like black and white clip art looking images for you. I have my iPad here, so I'm gonna show you that. I don't exactly know what the applications for a classroom would be for that feature, but I will tell you it is extremely fun. And it turned into like a game of almost Pictionary the other night with my husband and I just was like trying to see if it would catch. And most of the things I was drawing, it was suggesting me a nice little clip art image of. So I thought that was pretty cool, even if I can't think of a way to use it. The app also lets you insert from Google Drive. So if you have like I have PDF workbooks that are saved in my Google Drive of like math worksheets or grammar worksheets, whatever. In the app, I can insert that whole PDF workbook and select individual pages to show up. I'll show you that when I go onto the iPad. That's only in the app, only on the iPad or tablet. It doesn't let you do that on the computer. So just a few features that are only available in the app. Some limitations. There's definitely limitations to this. It's a very, very simple program. So a lot of the features that are available in such as something like slides are not available in Jamboard. There's no like text boxes aside from the auto shapes. There's no shapes on the computer. There's only a couple of different background choices. Like you can change it to like a graph paper looking background or a lined paper looking background, but there's not a lot of variety. Each one can only have a maximum of 20 frames in it. So if you needed more than that, you would have to start another one. And then as far as I can tell, it's a fixed frame size, meaning like the dimensions are the same no matter what. There's not, like in Google Slides, you can change the shape of the page you're working on. But as far as I've been able to find in Jamboard, you can't. It's the shape of like the screen, the slideshow screen that you're looking at, and that's kind of all it sticks to. There's not a line tool in the computer one. So I've been just drawing lines with my hand or my mouse. I did not try on the iPad to see if it would recognize a line as a shape, but we can try that when I open it up today. Oops, I'm in the wrong screen. Okay, so I just threw in here some different uses and screenshots, some examples. For math, I found it useful for just having students show work, arithmetic operations, solving equations, fraction operations, the things that are a little bit harder for students to type, basically. And here's some examples. This is all my writing, so I was trying to explain square roots and figuring out what x is equal when it's in a square root. And so drawing this out was a lot easier than typing that all when I was demonstrating that to the student. We solved an equation, and again, showing those steps, having kind of scattered text all around was easier to write. This one is a little bit sloppier, but I just wanted to show because it's a little bit smaller. So I had several problems on this page, but was still able to write the work that I needed to show to the student. And the students seemed to be able to follow what I was doing pretty well because they were watching as I was writing it. And you can see up in the corner there, there's an example of one of the sticky notes I mentioned. So that yellow square is the sticky note. Wilson reading would be another really good application of this. There's some magnetic tiles that people in a Facebook group have already created for Jamboard. It's good for marking up syllables or phrasing. Same, not just for Wilson reading, but for in the younger grades as well. It could be used for that. So here's one of the magnetic boards that somebody else created. And then something like this, again, like that phrasing, being able to write on the text that's already existing. And then Jamboard, I think, could be used really well for just things like highlighting text, fill in the blanks, multiple choice, graphic organizers, brainstorming, sketch notes, diagrams, those kind of, you know, outside the box, not just essay types of writing in any subject, really. So here was a student, I had read this poem, and you can see I had them highlight. I think the blue was like descriptions, and the orange was different nouns for the Loch Ness Monster. Something was circled down at the bottom of the page. These are all sticky notes, so it was a fill in the blank, and they just added sticky notes to answer. Again, this goes back to kind of one of the limitations. There's nothing that lets them just type onto it if they're in the browser, but they were able to do it using the sticky notes, so that's not terrible. It's an option. Just highlighting multiple choice answers. For this, I had the passage in Jamboard, so they were able to read and highlight in the passage and then answer the multiple choice questions. And here's that KWL chart I started as an example. This is, again, something, I think the sticky notes are something that could be good even for a whole class activity. There's a link later in the slideshow to a website that gives a lot of different ideas and templates, such as a KWL. They have like a fist to 5, a lot of kind of social, emotional, or warm-up stuff where you could have, you know, every student in the class create a sticky note that has a question on it that they have about the story they just read or something like that. And oops. So now I have just some instructions, and I'll kind of walk through these things as we go to them. So to create a new Jamboard, just like other Google products, you can either just go to jamboard.google.com or the Jamboard app itself. And I think I can switch. Yep. So here's jamboard.google.com. You can see my existing Jamboards that I've already made are here, and there's a plus sign in the corner. So if I want to make a new one, I just click on that plus sign. Or from my Google Drive, I can just go to New, More, and Google Jamboard shows up right there. Navigating and adding frames, like I had mentioned, the navigation is all on the top of the screen. So if we go to this Jamboard, there's an icon right at the top that tells me what page I'm on. I'm on the first page out of 1 right now. And if I click on that, I can add a page before or after. If I had more than one, I could delete a page. I can also just use these arrows to navigate back and forth. And when I do have something on multiple pages, it does show me like the preview of the page on when I have the navigation open, so I'm able to see what's on each frame. This is probably the thing that I have found most useful. You saw in a lot of the examples, like the math problems that I had in the reading stuff too, that I had problems or text on the Jamboard that the students then wrote on. So how do you get that? Because you can't type it directly in the Jamboard. But what I've been doing is using either snipping tool or snip and sketch. If you haven't used those before, snip and sketch is the newer version of snipping tool, so they're both the same thing. But it basically lets you, instead of taking a full screenshot of your entire screen, it lets you just pick a portion of your screen to take a screenshot of. So if I were going to do that, I would go to a worksheet and I would open Snip and Sketch, which I can do by holding down the Windows key, Shift, and then S, and that's typed in the slideshow, so you don't have to remember it. As soon as I type Windows Shift S, it loads the screen up to make a new snip. I just click and drag what I want to copy. I go back to my Jamboard and I paste it. And it's there. So I just took a PDF worksheet that I had, snipped a rectangle of it, and pasted it in here. And then I'll enlarge it. When you enlarge it, it's not the clearest thing ever, but you're able to read it. Students are able to read it. So that's what I have done for most of the Jamboards that I've used is kind of take a chunk of a worksheet or a couple of problems and paste them in here and then have the students write on top of them. On the iPad, as I mentioned, you also have the option of inserting a whole item from Drive, but I'll show you that when I go on the iPad. You could also, so the worksheet that I snipped for the Jamboard that I just showed you was a PDF, but you could do that for a document. You could do it from Microsoft Word. So anything that you have on your screen, you can do a little screenshot of. You could make an image the whole screen, but you can't make it the background. So if I go back, I'll show you. So this is my Jamboard. These are the only options it gives me for background: a blank screen, dots, lines, graph paper basically, grayish graph paper, or blue or black. So those are the only background options. You can insert a picture. You can do an image search. So I could insert this picture and make it the full size of the screen, but I can't make it the background like I could in slides. Another thing that's a little bit of a limitation is there's not a lot of, like in slides, if you have a picture and then a circle and a line and you're trying to organize like which one is on top of each other, there's a lot of features for that in slides. That doesn't exist in Jamboard. So I think it kind of puts the newest thing on top, and then from what I can tell, it's kind of stuck like that. You can move things around, but there's not like ordering, layering, that kind of thing. Just trying to check if I missed a question. No, that was it. Okay. Saving frames. Again, you can either download the whole entire document as a PDF, or you can save a single image. So it's in this ... the settings next to the share button. And you can see the option to download the whole thing as a PDF is there, or to just save a single frame as an image. You can also make a copy of it there, rename it, but these are about the settings. You can see there's no menu bar like you have in like docs and slides. There's no file, edit, those features. These are kind of the only settings and what's here at the top. And then the last slide of my slideshow is a few different links. I especially like this first one here, 10 Jamboard templates. Actually, I'm going to open that one up. The others have a couple of different ideas of ways that you could use Jamboard, but this was one that I had mentioned that I found that has actual templates you can download to use in Jamboard. And again, they're more of like the social emotional warm up kind of things. But 2 truths and a fib, guess who, a good, okay, bad, and it looks like they have all sticky notes there for each of their students to move themselves to. Same thing with thumbs up, thumbs down, and fist to 5. Graffiti wall, so students are all putting ideas on or feelings on that. A 4 corners, like you have a multiple choice and everyone moves their piece into the one they think it is. Stop and sketch, it looks like each student would be working in one little square there and kind of all sketching what they took out of the lesson. Jot spot sounds similar. And then 3 things. So 3 different things that you learn. Maybe that's something that you would have one for every student. All right, so going back to Jamboard. I'm gonna get rid of this lion and change the background. I'm just gonna go through the other features on the computer, and then I'll go through the other features on the iPad, and then just have some time for everyone to play around with it or whatever you want to do if you have any questions. Does anyone have questions now before I start going through the different features?
I have a question. So
Yeah.
you said that you've been using Jamboard for summer school with small groups. Do you feel like Jamboard is probably an easier tool to use with a small group as opposed to a whole class? I mean, you just went through some of the ways you could use it for some of the templates. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on what you're doing, for sure. But a small group probably is easier. You know, you could pretty easily have 3, 4, maybe 5 students all solving a math problem on different frames and be checking back and clicking back and forth between them. I think as far as whole class activities, kind of those ones with like the sticky notes would work well in Jamboard, but actually having all 20, 25 students working on something would probably be a lot.
So if you're having like let's say 3 or 4 students working on a math problem in different frames, so how did that work? Like, do you create the 4 different frames on your Jamboard and you assign a frame to each student, and so they're working on each one specifically?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And you can duplicate, so you could just make the math problem one time, duplicate it a few times.
Okay. And you say like, you know, so-and-so you work on frame 1, so-and-so you work on this one, you work on this frame. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Oh, that was a good question. Are you not allowed to work on the same frame?
You can work on the same frame.
Oh, okay.
So I guess you could put multiple on the same one. It would just be a matter of, you know, if you have any students that are having more of trouble writing with their mouse or touchpad, they might take up more room. Like one of those examples, one frame was a whole entire math problem for me. So kind of could go either way. There's a clear frame button at the top, so you could have everyone solve that same math problem and then just clear it. If you're on Google Meet, you could read the problem so you're not duplicating the slides every time.
Jessica, if you do clear frame, does it only clear what kids have written in, or does it clear any text you've snipped in?
Clears everything that you snipped.
Okay.
All right, there was a question in the chat box. Open on a Jamboard. So I think a Jamboard is like a smart board. So open on a Jamboard would be if you had that specific brand of interactive whiteboard. You can like project this directly onto it. So that's only if you had that. Another question was, do you know who's writing in case someone writes something inappropriate? No, you can't see. It doesn't give you like in Docs, it shows you the cursor and shows you who it is. So in this, it doesn't do that. It just shows what they've written.
Any suggestions on how to handle that? I'm thinking 8th graders. You guys all know what cohort we have this year. How do you handle that situation?
It hasn't come up for me only because I've only been working with at most 3 students, and they're pretty much students who I don't have to worry about that with. So I don't know if I have a good answer. This kids might just think that you're able to see who's writing. That might not work for the 8th graders. But in the younger grades, you know, since they know in other Google things you can. But yeah, that definitely could be a challenge, and I don't know if I have a good answer to that one. Jen suggested saving it as a PDF so you have evidence until you figure it out. So yeah. Other questions? Okay, so just to go through some of the other features, so we've got our undos, our zoom, change the background, clear the frame. The top here is where you navigate. I showed you those settings, but your toolbar, really the only things you can do in here are all over on this left side. So you have a pen. If you click once on it, it turns it on. And if you click a second time, it gives you the options for it. So you have a pen, a marker, a highlighter, or a brush, and you can change the color of each one. So if I want to just highlight that, change it to the blue highlighter, there we go. You also have an eraser. It doesn't have any different features. It's just one eraser, one size, and that's what it is. The select, the pointer tool. So if I want to move something around or change the size of it, I use the select tool. The sticky notes. So you can do a few different colors. You type as much text as you want. I think there is a limit, but it's like, you know, the size of like a Twitter post. So not a ton of text, but you can put like a paragraph on there, a short paragraph. So when you type something, it tells you the blue bar is like the length limit. You just click save, and it automatically just makes it kind of a small size. You can resize it, but as you can see, it stays square. So you can't change, you can't like make it a rectangle. It stays constantly so that the sides are all the same size, but you can make it bigger or smaller, and you can rotate it. Once you make a sticky note, you can go back into it and edit it. You can change the color of it and so on, but it is limited to that square shape. Add image, so you can upload an image, you can search the internet for an image, you can insert an image from your Google Drive, or it just gives you recent, or if you have anything saved on, I don't know what we're going to get here. We have some Footloose images here from my computer that you can choose from to insert, or like with this screenshot that I had, I just pasted that there. So you can also just paste it. And then the laser lets you point something out. It stays there for a second and then disappears. So if I'm talking to a student, I might say, look over at this Post-it note or something like that. And that's really it as far as features go on the computer. Those are kind of the only things you can do in it. Which again, it definitely has limitations. There's not a ton you can do, but for the things that it's useful for, it definitely has a lot of use. I'm going to join now on my iPad as well. So I'm going to stop presenting from my computer and start presenting on my iPad. And open the app on my iPad. So you can see it looks very similarly to the browser. There's my Jamboards that I've made before. If I go back into this one we were just in and go to a new slide. So on my iPad, you can see I still have the pen, but when I click on the pen, it also gives me the option of assistive drawing tools. And that's where that handwriting recognition, shape recognition, and draw recognition are. So if I click on the handwriting recognition and I write something, it takes a second and then it changes it into text. And I can change the size of the text. I can move it around. Anything that I would be able to do basically with a text box in another program. If I go to that shape recognition, I draw a shape. It changes it into a nice shape. There are certainly some limitations. Like I just tried to draw a line and it kind of turned it. I'll go back to text recognition in a second to check about exponents. It does fill in the shape automatically, and as far as I know, you can't change like the color or anything of that. Going back to text recognition to check about exponents.
I'm trying. I have it on my phone, and like you have to be really good at it because it looks like IO and then 10.
Right. Yeah. Just thought I would type XA. Maybe my 2s are not good. It keeps making my 2s into A's. So exponents seem to be tougher, at least if at all possible.
No, I did like, I have it. I don't know if you can see that.
You got it to, oh
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So just a little bit more challenging. All right, and then my personal favorite, auto draw. You can draw a pretty terrible shape, such as that fish, and it gives you all these different options. And I just click on it, and it makes it into whichever one I clicked on. Again, not sure what the use is of that in the classroom, but it is fun. And then the other thing I wanted to show on the tablet is that I can insert something from my drive. So on my tablet, I go to the plus sign. And one of the options is drive content. So it brings me to my Google Drive. I'm going to pull up a set of worksheets from the math book. And you can see it originally pulls it up as this like tiny, tiny icon. I double click on that icon. And now it lets me, now it's still pretty small. It lets me scroll through, find a page I want, click on it, and it inserts it as basically as a picture. So now if I wanted that worksheet, I can make it bigger. Oops, I accidentally just deleted it. So let's say I just want these 2 problems down here at the bottom. I just make that bigger, close out of that drive file, and now I have those 2 questions on the slide. So that I thought was a nice alternative, since on the tablet you can't really, it'll be harder to get a screenshot of just what you're looking for. So that feature is nice on the iPad or tablet. So I think that is it as far as what I had to say. Does anybody have any other questions?
Just kind of a comment sort of question. So I've been playing with this as I have my iPad with me. I've been playing on the iPad, trying to use some of those features. And then I go onto my computer and I can see like what I just created on my iPad is now in my drive as like a most recent I created today. It almost feels like if you can, it's almost easier to create something on the iPad.
Yeah.
That you want to use. Like, is that, do you agree? Do you feel like that's like, if you can create it on your iPad and then you can share it with your kids?
Yes, definitely, especially if you want some kind of text on it.
Yeah.
Even like going back to that, I don't know if I can get back to, yeah, here we go. So like this KWL chart that I made, I wrote those words in on the iPad because I didn't want to have to screenshot them from somewhere.
Right.
But then I added the sticky notes on my computer.
Right. But then like the kids wouldn't be able to, the kids can't access that feature. That's only for us when we're creating something for them to write on with that we want it to look nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if they were also on an iPad, they could do it, but I doubt most of them would get the app. And then even if they did get the app, they would have to, you know, some of them are adventurous, but I think most of them wouldn't put together what that feature actually was.
Right.
So
okay. Thank
finding
you.
it to be able to use it, I'm not sure they would.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Other questions?
Could you just kind of like summarize a list of limitations and uses, maybe? Maybe you don't have to say them, but like, I don't know if you have.
Yeah, so I had the slide. I guess it's easier if I go back to it. Uses, I would say math problems, definitely. Anything, especially in math, anything with like fractions, exponents, or graphing even, it's easier to draw on. I like the different, sorry, I'm just presenting from this, the different options for the different templates that I had put up earlier, with like the KWL chart, all that social emotional stuff, I think could be really good. So having a class, you know, if you're not in person, the things that you might do, like having everybody raise a number from 0 to 5 in an elementary school or younger classroom, those sorts of things I think can work really well. Even discussing a text after you've read it, like the sticky notes would be really useful for everyone. Post a question that you have, or everyone post, how did you feel after we read this? Something like that. The limitations, to me, the biggest limitation is just how few features it has. It seems like somebody had mentioned before that when they tried to use this a year ago, it didn't let students edit it. So it seems like Google's already kind of expanding this, probably knowing that it's useful for remote teaching. So I don't know if they'll continue to add features, but as it stands right now, I think that's the biggest limitation, is just the few number of features that it has. Was that helpful?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to picture just like how you open it in class, like how the kids type on it. It's hard to picture.
Yeah, so I don't know, in using it in the classroom, a lot of things that you would do on it could probably be done just as easily on paper, but it can be posted to Google Classroom. So if you have a Google Classroom, you could very easily post one for that students just click into and add their sticky note, something like that. Or, you know, put up the link to it on Google Classroom. Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. Other questions or thoughts? Oh yeah, I can share one with you. So you can actually create one yourself if you want, or we can all go into the same one so that you can see other people working in it as well. So I will post the link to this one in the chat box. All right, I just sent the link in the chat box. If a couple people at least want to go into it and see what it's like when you have a few different people in there. And feel free to, however you want to, you know, add a frame, draw on it, whatever you want to do.
Is that how you share it with your students, or like how could they get it on their phone? I guess they or their tablet?
From their phone or tablet, I would say I most likely, so with my tutoring students, when it's only one or a couple at a time, I'm emailing them the link and they're just clicking on the link. During the school year with my class, I would probably post it through Google Classroom. So they would either have to go through the Google Classroom app and then it would open in the Jamboard app.
Okay.
Or if you're doing it where you're making a copy for each student, it adds it to their Google Drive. So they might be able to just go to Google Drive or go to the Jamboard app and click on it. I haven't run into that yet because I've been just emailing the link.
Okay.
Actually, you can see who is writing, I guess. I hadn't noticed that the little icons are inside. So when somebody is writing, there is their little icon next to it. I guess you'd have to see them in the act of writing something if you were trying to catch them. But it does show you as they're writing who is doing it. I can get rid of this in the background that way. To answer the question there, if you zoom in, it's only zooming in for you. So my screen hasn't changed size at all.
I think I missed what you said about what is open on Jamboard.
So a Jamboard, I think, is a specific, like Google has a smartboard type project.
Okay, thanks.
So that's if you wanted to present it on the Jamboard.
Oh, now your document is in my folder. That's weird.
Yep, and you should be able to just remove it from yours if you don't want it there after. No problem. Bye, Julie. And yep, you can edit what somebody else did. You can erase what somebody else did. So like, I can erase this smiley face. It doesn't limit you to only doing your own things. It's definitely tough writing with a mouse.
Jess, do you have your tablet thingy set up? Can we see what it looks like when you write with that?
This tablet?
Yeah.
Yes. I just need to plug it in.
Was there?
So I haven't used this that much yet, but from what I've played around with it, I really like it. So I don't, you probably can't see my cursor, right?
I don't know. There's a lot of curses.
Where are you writing?
I haven't written anything yet, but with the tablet and stylus, if I just get close to it, but am not writing on it, it shows me where the mouse is. That was before I bought this. I was like, well, how am I going to know where I'm writing? Right? Like, I'm just going to start writing a problem and it's going to be, I'm not sure where it's going to show up on the screen. So if I just get close, it shows me where I am. And then, like, if I want to write, oh, I still have the highlighter on. Now, I wrote it on the big side. Again, I haven't played with it a ton, so I'm still getting used to it. I also have the slideshow only on, or the Jamboard only on half of my screen, so trying to just get that small spot is a little bit tougher. But it does, I think it definitely will take practice to get better at writing smaller. I'm going to go on to a new. All right, so I'm on slide 6. So not wonderful, but as you get used to it, definitely less painful on the hands than the mouse. So any other questions, thoughts?
It's really cool.
I think somebody asked, only the creator can add frames. I'm pretty sure anybody can if somebody wants to. Yep, somebody else just added one. But there is a limit of 20 frames. So it's not like a student could just keep clicking to add them and add hundreds of them. It only goes up to 20 total.
Can you give different people different access, like on a dock, like a view only or things like that?
Yes. Yep. So if I were going to add somebody, just like on a dock, it lets me choose only viewer or editor. So if you were just showing math problems, you could just give students view access to be able to, so that they're not messing with it.
And where did you say these save to? I know you can like turn them into a PDF, but if you just wanted to save them, where do you
just find in your
them?
Google Drive?
Just in your Drive. Okay.
Yeah. And you can it would save in the My Drive folder, and then you can move it around just like with other documents.
So when I pulled it up on my iPad, I got a screen that showed me like each of the little Jamboards I had tried to make over the spring. They were all there. And then when I went to Jamboard through Google, like through my Google on my laptop, I just got a blank screen. And there was no so I just have to go to my Drive and just find the ones I had used.
Yeah. Is your iPad logged into a different Google account?
No.
Oh.
No, it wasn't. But like when I logged into Jamboard, like it showed me, I don't know if it would come up. It showed me the ones I had already made.
Right.
There was like, I don't know if you can see it, but I already made them. They were right there and I could click on them. But maybe that's just because it's an iPad feature.
Right. I'm not sure because when I go to Jamboard, whether it's the website or the iPad, it shows me all the same ones.
Okay.
Yes, if you save it in Drive, you can come back to it another time.
Okay.
It saves just like all other docs in Drive. All right. Any other questions or final thoughts? Feel free to email me if you go to use this and have a question or you're unsure how to do something, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate having you all here. Hope you have a great rest of your summer. No problem. Thank you.